So the self-titled record is often a statement of intent, a kind of defining of a band's identity, for example. But on the self-titled record, I think, it is their most streamlined and their most kind of optimized version of Rivers of Nihil that we've had to date, and a real reaffirmation of the band. Hi there guys, welcome back, and hello if you are new. Thank you so much for tuning in for another week, and I hope you guys had a really great bank holiday. After finishing up the 4-album season cycle with my album of the year of 2021 that was The Work, Rivers of Nihil are now back with their first record in 4 years, their self-titled Rivers of Nihil. So if you're not familiar with Rivers of Nihil, they are probably one of my favourite bands of the last decade. I would say, they are one of the most forward-thinking, progressive progressive metal bands out there. And previously, each of their albums revolved around the idea of the seasons. So it all started off with The Conscious Seed of Light, which is representing spring. Then after that, we had Monarchy, which was representing summer. Where Owls Know My Name, which was absolutely a groundbreaking record, represented autumn. And then The Work finished out with winter. So I think the context of Rivers of Nihil is really, really important for this record, because after The Work, 2 members of the band left. Jake, who was on vocals, left the band, and Johnny T left the band as well. So with that in mind, they kind of took a bit of a back step and then reassessed everything, and Beegees became the main vocalist. And then we had Andy Thomas join from Black Crown Initiate, who, if you're not familiar with Andy, 1, he's an absolutely wonderful person, and 2, he is a fantastic guitarist and just as brilliant of a singer. And personally, I think it makes sense. Andy had known the band for years with Black Crown Initiate and just being mates. And then Beegees wrote the lyrics, so why not give him a stab at being, the main singer? So now the band are a 4-piece instead of being a 5-piece also. So the self-titled record is often a statement of intent, a kind of defining of a band's identity, for example. And the irony is that technically this is a new band, but on the self-titled record, I think, it is their most streamlined and their most kind of optimized version of Rivers of Nihil that we've had to date, and a real reaffirmation of the band. When it comes to the music, whereas The Work was kind of a all-encompassing, interwoven tapestry of like 70-minute prog, Rivers of Nihil is very much kind of individual song. Each of these tracks have elements which we're kind of still familiar with, and the band are kind of, I guess, perfecting to a degree, and then elements which are completely new. However, regardless of what elements we're kind of looking at, there's always a great balance, and I think that's what's really important to this record. But I think the core of this record really does lie in the vocals. That's the sort of wow factor of this album. And we've got Jared, Andy, and Biggs on vocals now. So 3 fantastic singers, and as Brody mentioned, the death metal Beegees, basically. But 2 tracks for me really stood out, which was House of Light and Water and Time, which for me is where the choruses really, really kind of get focused in. I think Andy has a real kind of moment of the limelight as well. And whilst there are moments where each member can kind of do their own thing, when all 3 of them are together, they create some really interesting harmonies that we've not heard from the band before. As I mentioned, this record really does showcase everything we've come to know from the band and more. Some of the more kind of mid-paced sort of riffing that we saw on The Work, you can kind of see on the Suborbital Blues, Criminals, and also Despair Church. But then you... Yeah, you say that I live on the fringe. But then you've got that sort of really kind of all-out assault going for the jugular, which is kind of a little bit more Monarchy on American Death, Evidence, and Dustman. you know, really, really solid, aggressive songs. And then they've got that sort of progressive element that we saw woven through Where Owls Know My Name, on tracks like The Logical End and the self-titled track at the end of the record. And as much as I absolutely really love Rivers of Nihil, they're a band where I don't really kind of go back to them, you know? So like when I was listening to the work, it was just kind of those concentrated individual listens where I just did nothing else but listen to that record. And I absolutely loved it. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that I don't like them and that's why I don't kind of go back to them. But in the past, I think because their sound has been so massive, you know, all these like 70 track guitars and the concept as well, I think it's been kind of more of an individual album listen, whereas I think this record has had me coming back more and more and more and kind of like gleaming different things from individual tracks. And I think that's the strength of this record, is the tracks individually really speak for themselves. Despite this being a technically completely new band, I can't think of any other Rivers of Nihil record which is this tightly succinct and compact in terms of what we come to know from Rivers of Nihil's sound. And if anything, I think that this record really shows that the band have earned that self-titled moniker and that this really could be their sort of, you know, black album. It's the 5th album. It's a big moment in the band's career, I think. And, you know, this new lineup is the quintessential essence of, I think, Rivers of Nihil. It's a really great record and I'm sure it's going to be in my end of year lists. So I guess all that there's to say is hats off, gents. Anyway, thank you so much for checking out this album review. If you did enjoy it, it'd be great if you could hit that like and subscribe button. Let me know what you think of the album once it's out as well. I always love to have a chat with you guys in the comments. And if you haven't already, check out my chat with Brody, because he talks all about House of Light and the self-titled record, all that sort of stuff. It's really, really interesting. And I'll see you guys very, very soon for even more album reviews, interviews, and good stuff. Take care, my friends.